Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the ASTV's Premier League Fantasy Show. I am your host, Gally, as always, coming from Massachusetts, and ASTV Tuesday. How are you, my friend?
Good, good. Glad to be back. It's small improvements. I'm enjoying watching you climb back in the top 100K, so that's cool. But it's good. It's good to be back. It's good to have this, and it's going to be an interesting time for these last several weeks here.
Well, thank you very much. We will look at some of our standings. Has been a good few weeks there as I try to make the climb back into a respectable area for my team to be in. I don't know that I want to stop at the top 100,000. I'm not exactly happy with the way that this season has gone, but I can't complain with how the last few weeks have gone, including some of the moves that we have made. I just want to thank everyone, whether you're joining us tonight on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or X, whatever you like to refer to it these days, and of course, through our American Scouser Facebook page and the YouTube channel. Feel free to leave comments, ask questions. And as always, if you haven't subscribed to all the different mediums, get out there, check our website out, it has all the links, and give it a like, a follow, and a subscribe. So let's jump right to it. Last week's team of the week. Interesting week, obviously. I think there were quite a few managers that sold Ollie Watkins and probably weren't happy with that move. Same with Kevin De Bruyne. I think Kevin De Bruyne led to quite a few people getting sold and probably had some frustrations as well. Anything here jumps out at you? Anything here outside of Ollie Watkins and potentially Kevin De Bruyne? Is there anything here that's even sustainable?
Weirdly enough, Havertz, that isn't his first double-digit haul of the year. He's had several. He's kind of had those quiet, sneaky, good fantasy games. It's always one of those moments like, oh, Arsenal scores 5. Yeah, Havertz will have one of them. He'll be part of something, and he'll end up with 8, 9, 12, something random. Other than that, I don't expect Kobe Mainu to have 10. I don't expect Clark to have 10. Bruno, meh. The only ones that I could possibly see get another return like this would be either Van de Ven or Pedro Porro, given how much part of the attack they're a part of. So I could see that. Not that the double digits is sustainable, but if I were to expect another haul like what we see there, I would expect it from one of those two defenders the most probably.
Well, that's true. And they do have the double game weeks as well.
Yeah.
Which plays into that a lot of times. So let's take a look at this week's transfers in and out. Top transfers in for game week 33. I always love the recency bias. Kevin De Bruyne and Cole Palmer makes some sense to me. Luis Diaz has the double coming up. Watkins just had a big game. And, I think there was kind of a few-week period where some folks sold Saka, feared he was injured, and have kind of brought him back into the fold. What are your thoughts on the incoming players this week? Anyone there you're targeting for your side?
Not anyone that I was one of those that transferred Saka out for Foden. Obviously didn't work this past week. In a way, it actually did work because then Ollie was my first off the bench. That was able to sub in for Foden. So it was okay in a way. The only one that I'm a little bit surprised about is Cole Palmer, only because I'm surprised that 120,000 people don't have him already. It's like, what have you been doing if you don't have such a cheap player in your midfield the entire year? The guy's been incredible the entire year. I can't understand how so many people still didn't have him. But other than that, I think everything else makes sense. The Luis Diaz one, I don't know how you feel about that, especially after today. Obviously, we don't want to say that Europa League fixture is going to translate into the Premier League because things can change. But at the same time, Luis Diaz hasn't really returned so much as you would want in a guy that you're spending $8+ million on in the midfield, right? I mean, he's able to bring the ball up here and there, but there's just hasn't been no end products. I don't know how you feel about Luis Diaz's name being there.
Yeah, I don't love it. I definitely wouldn't prefer it for my own team. I think maybe if I was on like a game week 34 wild card or a free hit, I might consider it just from a differential standpoint, because of ownership levels, and he has the ability to get you a couple goals and an assist. He's chipped in a little bit, kind of like not to the degree of Havertz, but similar to Havertz. He's got a sneaky amount of goals and assists, and he smatters them around. And every once in a while, he'll pick up a bonus point for being so involved. And they must just give him extra points for dribbling into defenders. But when I see Saka and Watkins, the Watkins one, that to me, the fixtures aren't great. He has no doubles. That's just people that were frustrated that they sold him and they're just buying him back. They're like, all right, I'm getting rid of Bourne, I'm getting rid of Solanke and I'm buying Watkins back. I feel like that might be the one that I question the most on this list of any of the 5 players. I personally don't think Kevin De Bruyne is a good buy. I had him in my side for a short period of time, and really it was only because it was easy to have him while I was waiting for Mo to come back and kind of hold the salary.
Same.
Uh, and I just think that he's kind of past that point where I can really rely on him. I think Foden has taken over as the most important player in City's attack. Whether he plays this weekend after the small knock against Madrid, we can talk about that a little later. I'd love your input on that. Let's shift our gears over, focus on the right-hand side of the screen. Let's talk a little bit about the outgoings. So, Douglas Luiz, I'm pretty sure. Now, did he get injured, or is that a 2-match ban because he picked up his 10th yellow?
It's a 2-match ban.
Yeah, so Douglas Luiz, easy one, makes sense. 2-match ban. Areola is hurt. Looks like he probably won't feature again this season. Trippier out for at least a few more weeks based on what Eddie Howe had to say in his pre-match presser. And then Son with the blank game week next week. I think it's just some people proactively selling him, maybe even shifting funds, trying to load up on Liverpool, or even maybe the folks who still don't have Mo Salah looking for a route to Mo Salah before the double. And then Bowen, on a flagged caution, the second most purchased player. The Bowen one is a little surprising to me. I guess I would think we would see a little bit more activity for folks who are trying to position themselves into game week 34. Ins and outs. What are you seeing here from these outs, other than the injured and flagged players?
Yeah, I mean, well, with Bowen, he's got that hip problem, so it's kind of 50-50 if he's going to play or not. And so if you have, how much is he? He's 7'9". Like that's quite a bit of money that you could use in that midfield. I'm almost feeling like a lot of the Bowen outs are part of the Luis Diaz's ins, if you will. That kind of has been what I would consider be kind of the like for like transfer between the two, especially if you have a couple extra. Because I think Luis Diaz, he is 7'6", so you don't even have to have any extra to get Luis Diaz in. So that's what I'm seeing. Everything else kind of made sense. I understand the Son thing. I think Son is the hardest decision I have to make on my team. Is do I keep him for the next 2 weeks or do I not? But we'll get into our teams obviously. But yeah, the Son one one's going to be a head scratcher for many people, I feel.
Let's go take a look here at the FPL goal scorer statistics and odds for this upcoming match week 33. Haaland, the clear favorite to score at 56.5%, leading all others, followed closely by Ivan Toney, Mo Salah, and Darwin. Of course, Alvarez up there as well. And then all the known names, Son, Jesus, Isak, Solanke. So very striker heavy, right?
Yep.
Outside of Mo and, of course, De Bruyne, Diaz, Foden, and Palmer, we start to move down that line. Saka, where do you see the goals coming from this match week? And how many of these players would you be investing in if you had the moves to make for this week?
Yeah, I think Haaland's the easy shout there. The only problem with Haaland is knowing whether or not he will play against Luton. I think there's a chance that he might sit the first half or the first 60 minutes. because if there is a game to rotate for Pep for Haaland, it would be against Luton at home. You would at least think that would be the case. But with Foden potentially not being a fit for the game, that could change a lot of things too. Because if Foden's not playing, I think Haaland goes all 90. But if Foden is fit enough to play, I think Haaland does come off the bench. So and that one, if he plays, the percentage makes sense. As far as the rest, I don't know. I don't have huge hopes in Darwin and Mo against Palace. I don't know. I feel like they're gonna struggle to go against that low block. Son with the Newcastle defense, it's always hard because you don't know if Newcastle's defense is going to be rock solid or if they're going to leak 7 goals. Like it's weird in between. And with Tottenham's style of play, I could see Son being part of a couple of returns there if things go well. So yeah, it's interesting to see the first 6. I wanted to ask you with Tony's name up there, because I was looking at Brentford's fixtures, right? And when you're looking at Brentford's fixtures, they have Sheffield at home, Luton away, Everton away, Fulham at home, Bournemouth away, Newcastle home. On paper, maybe one of the best last 6 fixtures out of any team. So having Tony that high up there, do you have any sort of thought about having Tony or maybe a Wissa as someone to look into?
Maybe down the line, but I just think that especially with a double game week in 34, I just don't think that it makes sense to have Tony. We talk about the price. I think you can just get better value. You're still getting better value, in my opinion, with Solanke and from Bournemouth. I think you're still getting a little bit better value even from Muñoz at Fulham. So I think there's a few different alternate options, and obviously I'm a player who's playing with Haaland, so I don't have the luxury of using 3 forwards the way that you are. Isak, I definitely think is another one that's a really great shout. I really wish Newcastle was doubling in 34. If they had been, I would have had Isak in. Paul Bickler jumps in and says, in protest of the season ticket price increase in going to captain the right person this week. Well played, Mr. Bickler. Well played. Flags out, guns out. But no, there's no real reason here for me to think that Darwin is a good investment at this point. And I love the player. I think he has a load of talent. But, you don't get extra points in fantasy for working hard. You might get a bonus point here or there for some underlying stats, but you're not getting those types of points. So, I hate to say it, a guy like Darwin does fall down the pecking order, and a guy like Havertz goes way up it, right? You start to look at the scoring and you see who's really scoring in this league. You need guys that play 90 minutes and get the majority of opportunities to score goals. And I think that's where Haaland comes in, because I think Haaland will start on the weekend against Luton, because I think Pep will want to put that game to bed early. And the last thing he'll want to do is give Luton anything to try to hang on to or them to try to muck it up for him. And I just think that he also wants to get Haaland scoring. The last time Haaland really filled his boots and felt good about himself was the 5 goals in the FA Cup or the League Cup, whenever it was that they played Luton. So I could see Haaland starting this match. I am a little worried about the rotation. I like Cole Palmer a lot against Everton. I always like Everton for a mistake, which gives you an opportunity at a free kick in a dangerous spot or even a penalty. And I do think that as much as we like to poke fun and pick on Chelsea, which is easy to do, I do think at times they play pretty good football, and it all runs through Cole Palmer. So if anything is positive going to happen from a fantasy standpoint, I could see it happening well for Cole Palmer. And I like Isak as well, because I have zero faith in Spurs defense other than scoring lots of boatloads of goals, because Ange's defenders score lots of goals. They don't stop any goals, but they score a lot of goals.
If you score more than the other team, you win.
We talked a little bit about this when we talked about Haaland. So let's think about this game week 34 and the rotation risk for players, specifically those who just had exploits in Europe. So we're talking really about, obviously, Arsenal and City, of course, Liverpool, and then also Aston Villa and West Ham all played midweek matches, all pretty intense matches, and went with fairly strong sides, if not their top sides. Other than Kevin De Bruyne not playing because, he was sick or, there's always an excuse for Kevin De Bruyne. There's always an excuse. It doesn't matter what the situation is. There's always an excuse. Assuming Kevin De Bruyne is fit enough to make the starting lineup, if you had some City assets, Erling Haaland, Foden, how worried are you about their minutes? Would you consider selling and or benching the player?
I wouldn't consider selling if you have any of those guys. I don't think that would be the right way to go. But benching potentially, I don't know. I had a feeling of rotation last week, so I started Foden anyway, because in my head I figured either he doesn't play and I'll just get someone off the bench to come in, or he does play and it gives me a chance at some sort of return, because there's always going to be that opportunity. I think especially against a team like Luton at home, City's going to have their opportunities. So whether he comes off the bench or whoever comes off the bench or whether they start, they'll have the opportunities regardless. So I think City specifically, I wouldn't be too worried about those assets. It's just a matter of making sure that your bench is ordered right so that you have whoever coming off of it that you want to have come off of it. Because if I had not switched around Watkins to come first last week, I would have missed out on 13 points or whatever it was. So from the City side of things, I wouldn't be too worried. I don't think any other team that you mentioned, they're going to go as strong as possible. And Liverpool's going to go as strong as possible. There's no chance Mo or Darwin get rotated or Van Dijk get rotated. Those are like the three most commonly owned assets on Liverpool. As far as Villa goes, they're playing Arsenal, right? So Saka doesn't get rotated, Gabriel doesn't get rotated, Watkins doesn't get rotated. Like these are big fixtures for these clubs. So this week specifically, I don't think there's much headache in terms of rotation because I think the fixtures don't allow that rotation to happen.
Yeah, I think City has the biggest concern for me. I'm not really focusing on the West Ham assets because I don't think they're really as much in favor right now, right? I don't think they're things that people are clamoring to get their hands on. So, chip strategy wise, you have your bench boost left.
Yep.
Is that it, or you have your triple captain as well?
Triple captain as well. Yeah, bench boost and triple captain.
And which one are you using either this week?
No, not yet. Getting down to the nitty gritty though. I'm really stuck because 37 is a very interesting week, and I'm really kind of battling myself between which chip to use for 37. And depending on which chip you use, like if you're like me and you have let's say a bench boost available, you're going to want to make some transfers that set you up for that week. So if I don't start kind of mapping that out, I might miss out on an opportunity to get exactly what I want in for that week. But then I look at some of the fixtures and I think, well, this could actually be a good triple captain week as well. Because as far as I'm concerned, there really isn't any other game week that is worth using either one of those two. So it's just going to be kind of on a whim. So I think, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I just talked myself into a bench boost in 37, and I'm just going to have to just try the triple captain one of these next 3 weeks just to kind of see what hits the wall kind of deal.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you got to – I think you have to triple captain in 34 and bench boost in 37. I mean, I don't think there's really – the only other option would be to triple captain in 35 and pick a Spurs or Chelsea asset. I mean, at this point, if you don't take a double opportunity, you're not going to find a single fixture, other than maybe if you really thought like this is the week Phil Foden gets a hat trick against Luton type thing. But even then, with, having Arsenal's has double fixtures in 37, so you could use any of the Arsenal assets. City has double fixtures in 37. Spurs have doubles in 35 and 37, and Chelsea have doubles in 35 and 37. So, I mean, right there, we're talking Palmer, Son, Haaland, Foden. they really give you options if you wanted to triple captain. I think the bench boost makes the most sense because you won't hate your team if you build into it to have a really full roster of teams that are doubling in 37.
Yeah.
And I do think there are enough captaincy options in 34 for you to pick between Mo, Saka, that I think there's probably quite a few other, there's at least one or two more that, you could go for the differential type pick if you really wanted to. But I mean, I think, you have Mo Salah on your team. He's playing 2 fixtures in a week and he's going to start both of them.
Yeah. And
to me, it's
Fulham and Everton in
games.
Yeah.
That's about the type of setup you're asking for. So for me, I think your answer. Yeah. You just so disgusted just watching the scoreline unfold on your phone today.
Just watching them play in general. It's hard to have any faith when you see not just today, but over the weekend and then last week and the weekend before. It's just, it becomes a pattern. And patterns, when you play this game, you have to watch out for patterns, right?
Well, we've seen a pattern here, a good pattern last week, a good pattern with a green arrow. So talk to me. What were your transfers last week? What did you end up doing with the side?
So I did a double transfer because I had 2 transfers. So I brought in Gvardiol and I took out Saka, and I brought in Foden for Saka, and then I don't remember which defender I transferred out. Probably some scrub that wasn't getting any minutes. And yeah, it worked out in a sense because I did start Foden and he did not play. So Watkins got auto subbed in. Gvardiol was a bit disappointing, of course, but overall, there's nothing else I could have done that would have gone better. So yeah, I guess I could have captained Salah or Pedro Porro. Obviously, I wasn't going to captain someone on the bench in Watkins, but aside from that, there's really nothing else I could have done that would have done anything better for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think, side's in decent shape there. What is your plan going into this week? What are your thoughts going into this 33? This one free transfer, clearly.
Yeah, this 33, I'm gonna hold still, and I'm just going to keep my free transfer, and then plan to do a double transfer the following week. Line up that triple captain the way I want it, which then will give me 1 transfer for 35. And then I can double in 36 to have 1 more in 37 for the bench boost. So that's kind of the path where I'm at. So I don't have much exciting news as of this week for the direction I want to go. There is a route off Darwin if I wanted to, but if I want him back for the double, it's going to make no sense for me to transfer him out now just to waste another transfer to get him back in next week. Yeah, so
that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so I'm going to sit pat there and kind of just go from there and see what happens.
Next week when you make your double transfers, you probably bring in like an Arsenal asset, and then you only have Gabriel at this point. You're a little light on their side of the attack.
Yeah, would definitely like someone attack minded for Arsenal. So whether it's Saka, whether it's Havertz, fucking God forbid, I thought I would never be saying that. Then there's that option there. And then there is a world then also where Son has to get transferred out, and then maybe get brought back in for 37. But there's just with them blanking, it's tough to have that 10 million or 9.8 million sitting there, kind of just taunting you.
Yeah, but I mean it is 1 week. If you want Son back for 37 and you're going to bring him back in, honestly, maybe you just bang him on your bench for 1 week in 34 and just let him sit there. I mean, just only reason is then you have the double in 30, you have the double in 35, and then a double in 37. So he's playing 5 matches in 3 game weeks after this.
I guess it's just that they're playing Arsenal at home, Chelsea away, Liverpool away. So it's just,
they can score goals against all them, and Arsenal will be one of them, in my opinion, will end up being one of the matches of the season. So I think that's where Arsenal drops points. I could see it being 2-2, 3-3. And I think he scores against Liverpool and he scores against Chelsea. So
Fair.
I mean, we're talking about a striker. I think he's I think if I'm not mistaken, he has the third most goal involvements of any player in Premier League history. It's not even like in the actual Premier League history. It's an amazing statistic. They were talking about it the other day. It might be midfielders, but it's basically he's behind Kevin De Bruyne or maybe it's existing like in the league today or something. But it was just an unbelievable stat line about him. So you have your plans. It looks like you have a good idea where you're going with that. Take a look here at my side. Nice bump up. For a bit there, I was as high as 70, even 60,000. I think I was 68,000 at one point in the live scoring. Could have done myself a little better had I captained either Saka really or Haaland would have increased my overall score. Gary O'Neill deciding to take Aït-Nouri out of the match a minute and a half before he would get 5 more points for a clean sheet. That didn't help by any means as well. Probably would have not only gotten him a clean sheet, but because they then concede the goals, I probably would have also gotten him some bonus points. So that probably would have boosted me up a little bit. Obviously, I actually benched Foden. I had this sneaky feeling he wasn't going to start. It was just an odd one, for me overall. Sitting Virgil obviously worked for me as well. I gambled with the double Everton defense. It's why I picked these players up. I didn't pick them up to play them every week, but I picked them up to target matches that I thought they could do Sean Dyche type things. So it brings me to an interesting one this week. I do have 2 free transfers, so I'm going to have to make one. And I'm a little torn. I really like the Muniz player. But I am planning to roll the dice. I am planning to try to make a move and move up the ladder. I am going to bench boost in 34. So when I came off of my wild card in 30, my whole point of wild carding in 30 was to maximize game week 30, 31, 32, and 33, and then bench boost in 34 and try to really make my run with that. I don't love it just because things haven't shook out exactly how I'd like. I kind of got caught up in a moment and I was like, I need to get Gabriel and I can get him in now. And then I forgot that the whole plan was to bring Odegaard back in for Foden eventually before the double game week in 34 as one of the transfers. But now I'm tied with 3 Arsenal assets because I have Raya. But I do like having Raya and I like having Pickford. Like, I genuinely think for the bench boost in 34, I have almost like what a team that many people will free hit into. At this point, I'm thinking my first move this week might be to move off the Fulham striker who probably would have been on my bench and go to Mateta. I'll probably still just stash him on my bench anyways. But now I have him in line for the double game week. I save a tiny bit of money, or it's a break-even point. I still have a little cash in the bank. That would then give me 2 free transfers in 34. And then really I have to decide how much do I want to make moves, because I could move Gusto and really improve Gusto. I could also use some of that money to improve another defender if, say, Aït-Nouri doesn't look like he's going to be playing as much. But it leaves me with really like an entirely full team. And if I really wanted to, I could even take Foden out. I could go to a Liverpool midfielder. I could, I have options there as well. To the point where I could have, upwards of 13 doublers all in the same match week, along with Haaland and Cole Palmer, which I'm pretty comfortable with those 2 guys playing single match week. So, I do feel good about what I did. I think it's reflected in the standings and where I've risen to. Now, coming out of 34, the team's going to need some work to really get me back to where I need to be for 35 and 36. And then in 37, I need to make sure that I almost need to start building my team, I feel like, from 35 and 36 for 37. Because I need the strongest possible, almost template team for match week 37 when so many people are going to be on the bench boost and triple captain,
Right.
to make sure that I don't take a plummet. But if you were me sitting on this side, built the way it is, what might you do? Were there areas you would specifically look to? What would your thoughts be for how to maximize 33 and potentially 34 from a double game week?
I genuinely think you're in a really great position. You know, obviously it pains me to say how nice of a team this is, but I think with where you're at with Muniz, it makes sense because, especially with the potential formation you can go with, you can easily get by with two forwards, and if those two forwards are Holland and Solanke, then you don't have to necessarily worry about it. So I think obviously because you don't want to burn a transfer either and lose one. So making sure that you make some sort of move with Muniz is the best way. And if Mateta is what makes you feel the best about that, then I think that's the best way to go. I don't think, like you were saying, maybe on the Liverpool midfielder, you probably don't need to go that route. And I guess it depends on how the form shakes out. You know, if Jota comes back and he is kind of what he was right before he got injured, then maybe, yes, there is a potential plan to go there, right? You could have, depending on how much funds you have, you could do a little Sarabia to Jota kind of situation. But with Neto out, Sarabia is kind of the guy at Wolves. So, you have a cheap asset there. You don't need to get off of either. So, yeah, all in all, the team looks great. It's just about not wasting a transfer. And the one that you'd be most comfortable with is Muniz. And I think you could also get off Gusto. That was the only one that I've only ever questioned that you did a few weeks ago. I think I questioned on the show too. Like I didn't feel good about Gusto. I don't know. I know Chelsea can play well at times, but I don't think that will result much for Gusto, but it will result much in other players.
Yeah, he would definitely be one. I mean, most likely Muniz goes to Mateta primarily because I think Crystal Palace has good double fixtures, and they really are, under the new manager, playing a much more attacking style and trying to attack. And now they have Elise and Eze back healthy, both of which are players, if I wanted to go off Foden, I could go to as well to give me a nice, Crystal Palace kind of attack. Because you have to assume that the scoring's coming from one of those three. Because I do think Mateta has clearly shown that he is the manager's first choice striker at the club at the moment. I like their fixtures and I like his price tag. Obviously, it doesn't change my side or make me have to make the double move. If I really wanted to, I could go, I could do something like I could go to Semedo and I could double on the Bournemouth attack, but he hasn't been guaranteed starts recently. I obviously will want a team. If I'm going to target a player, I'm going to target a side that has 2 game weeks in 34. The whole point is to have a cheap enabling striker that can score me some goals. So I really do like it there. The other option is I really gamble and I drop down and I go with a single game week guy and I go off Foden and I go down to the Diaz guy for Sheffield United, who's been scoring loads of goals and getting assists and creating a lot for them recently. And then I could basically go to any striker I wanted. So then if I wanted to, I could come up to Darwin. I could come up to Isak. I could come up to even Calvert-Lewin if I wanted. I thought about going Calvert-Lewin, to be honest, but I just don't love Everton's double fixtures. So it's kind of a dicey one there. I think I probably just go the safe route and I go Mateta. And then I save Foden. Whether I start him, I probably start Foden. I sit Mateta I have this fear that this will be the match where Foden gets 10 minutes in. And then the following week with my 2 transfers, I decide to either keep Foden, roll the dice with him, or if, the Madrid match goes 120 minutes, now I can maybe take Foden down to even McAllister and then go Gusto up to any defender I want, right? Or I could go Foden to a lesser mid like an Eze, take the 2 million and go Gusto to maybe Robertson if I could fit it in financially, because I have about $1 million.
Or you can get off Holland and join the dark side.
Yeah, but I like this thing that I have where I'm going to finish inside the top 200,000 or top 100,000, and that's where I want to be. I looked at my because I had to go there today. I wanted to be prepared to see kind of where I went from when I made the wild card, and I was looking at the standings, and I will say I was pretty proud of myself. This is my 9th year, I think, playing fantasy Premier League, and I've only once finished outside the top 250,000.
That's impressive.
And that was 335. So all of my years, I'm actually inside top 500. I have four top 100,000 finishes and 2 top 15,000 in back-to-back years. What's crazy is when you see my actual overall score,
the points are higher, but your position's lower.
Yeah, like I it's just crazy how and obviously it makes sense. The more people that get in the game. But one year my points were like one of my highest years ever, where I scored the highest, and I was at like 80,000, and I was like, how the hell does this happen? And then other years I've scored less, and I'm in the top 20,000 of the game. So it's an interesting time there. It'll be an interesting run in. Let's see here. I think when we get to 2-3 weeks left, we're gonna have to then take a look and assess where we're at. And we're going to have to come up with actual goals and then see how we do and hold ourselves to them. So as I was saying earlier to everyone, if you are not already subscribed to the YouTube channel, please head on over there now. Search American Scouser on YouTube. You will find us and tons of content. We have shows Monday, Wednesday, and Friday in the mornings, 10 Eastern. We have our Monday night podcast at 8 p.m. We record a Premier League show that usually comes out on Tuesday or Wednesday. We have shorts and reels all week long, as well as the Premier League panel show, this fantasy show, and our Thursday night podcast. So we got you covered. We have new content coming. Plus, we have our match day coverage with pre and post match. So please follow us on all the socials, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Good luck, everyone, in Game Week 34. We will be back next Thursday with another edition of the Fantasy Show. Have a great week, everyone.